Yeah, I'm Tony Koski. I'm at CSU, and I'm an extension specialist, but I'm in the horticulture department. How many of you were ever in 4-H as kids? Oh, see, right. So 4-H is extension. So extension's that part of the university that takes science-based knowledge and we come out into the community and share it with you. Try to make your lives better. Try to make your lawns better. Yeah, so that's what extension agents do in the counties and extension specialists. So I cover the whole state. And I work with the golf course industry and lawn care and sod growers and sports turf and parks and cemeteries and anyone that grows turf. I used to say grow grass, but it has a different connotation these days. So I don't do that kind of grass. Although I did answer a question on that today, believe it or not. Somebody sent me because they think, for some weird reason, that I know something about that stuff, and I don't. So what we're going to do is talk about how to have a water-efficient, I say cool season lawn. Most people have bluegrass lawns. Although, anybody have a buffalo grass lawn? Anyone take Don's class and switch to buffalo grass after last month's talk? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, but yeah, most people have cool season lawns. Bluegrass, fescues, bluegrass, ryegrass. So cool season grasses are ones that like it they like the spring, they like the fall. They don't like so much like days like today. Yeah, they're kind of like us. They prefer a little bit cooler, whereas buffalo grass and blue grama, the more native grasses that were here way before we were, they like this time of year. The hotter it is, the happier they are. So they're two totally different creatures. So to have a cool season, a healthy cool season lawn here, we have to provide some level of life support, I guess you would say, especially at these times of the year. And that big form of life support, of course, is water. So how many of you came here from somewhere else? Yeah, like Illinois or Pennsylvania. Oh, so lots of you are natives then, right? Yeah. So a lot of people in Colorado came from somewhere where it rained. So the idea of watering a lawn is kind of a foreign thought. It's like, wow, you got to water a lawn? I've never done that in my life. So, so it is the main form of kind of that life support, if you will, to get our lawns through the summer. So, but the amount of water you use is affected by the other things you do on your lawn, the way you fertilize, the way you mow, that type of thing. So what we're going to talk about is how to have overall more water efficient lawn. But that really involves all those other maintenance practices. So we'll kind of go through a little, I call it Turf 101. Okay, it's kind of intro to turf, but a lot of times people say, oh, I never knew that. Or my grandfather said to do it this way, and usually that means they're wrong. It's like my dad, God bless him, he would call me, and I'd call him every other day or so, and he'd say, oh, what do you think of this? I'm doing this, and I'm doing that. I said, well, I wouldn't do that, Pops. He goes, oh, what do you know? And no, I don't know anything. Yeah, you do what you want there. I know he was going to do whatever I didn't say anyway. So, we'll kind of jump into. Oh, I wanted to say regarding extension though, we've got information on anything. So it's food and nutrition and food safety and agronomy and horticulture, just all aspects of really everyday living. So, nobody ever calls me and says, my lawn's beautiful today. They never do that. Unless they're very lonely people and they just want to talk to someone. But usually it's, my lawn's got weeds, I got bugs, I got brown spots, my lawn's yellow, my lawn's dead. Yesterday it was fine and it's dead today. I get that one a lot. It's like, yeah, this didn't happen overnight. But people call with problems. They call with problems. And a lot of times people think, oh, I got insects. I got bugs. I got to spray something, and there's kind of this assumption, I got brown spots. That must mean I've got either an insect or a fungus, and I got to spray it with something. And that's really usually not the case in Colorado. It's pretty darn uncommon. Now, where I came from in Illinois, and in a previous life, I was a golf course superintendent, and I didn't sleep at night in the summer because there were all kinds of creepy crawlies and cruds wanting to kill my golf course all summer in Chicago. I was just looking at the weather, and it says today it's 101, feels like 117. It's like, whew, I'm glad I'm not a golf course superintendent there today. But when you get conditions like that, you get all kinds of nasty things want to kill your grass. Out here, it gets warm, 95, like right now. I was just checking my phone. But what don't we have that Chicago or Indiana or Pennsylvania or Florida has? Humidity, yeah. And humidity is the thing that triggers a lot of disease problems. Humidity is what allows really a lot of insects to become problematic. So in a very, very dry climate where we can control our water, we can eliminate a lot of our disease problems. But people don't control their water very well, and that leads to disease problems. Or they have really bad irrigation systems, like my friends in the back were telling me, that they had a water audit done and they said, abandon the system. It's like abandon ship. It was that bad. So we've got a lot of poorly designed or aging irrigation systems. You know, when an irrigation system gets to be 25, 30 years old, it's kind of at the end of its life. I mean, most of us don't expect our car to last that long, and irrigation systems, they can go downhill once they get to be that old. So that results in poor irrigation coverage. So your water bill's still high, but the water's not going everywhere uniformly, and we get brown spots. And that especially shows up when we have weather like this. So it's not always necessarily the amount of water you're applying, it's how uniformly you're applying it. And so then we get brown spots, and then people say, oh, I got to spray something on the brown spot. And I say, you got to spray water on the brown spot. Not an insecticide, not a fungicide, okay. So we have relatively few insect problems, although, you know, now we have Japanese beetle in Colorado, which is getting to be a little bit of a pain. It'll probably get worse before it gets, but probably nothing as bad as it was where, you know, in Illinois, where, you know, I would be trapping skunks and raccoons and spraying insecticides all the time because the Japanese beetle is really bad back there. But then disease problems really, especially in a home lawn, disease problems should be pretty uncommon in Colorado if you're irrigating correctly. But one of our worst ones, and I'll show you a picture of it, is a root rot fungus. And what does that mean? Root rot. Things are a little too wet. And I walk on a lot of lawns where I say, boy, I wish I had my waterproof golf shoes on today. You know, my feet are getting wet as I'm walking through people's lawns. So that leads to problems that if you're irrigating a little bit less, you're not going to have those disease problems. So that's why I say most disease problems, especially in lawns, are what we call secondary problems. There's a management problem that's making the turf not so happy, and then it gets a disease. You know, so plants are like us. If we don't sleep enough, if we don't eat right, whatever, we're more likely to catch the flu or get a cold or something like that. Plants are the same way, okay? But we do get weeds, although a lot of our weeds are related to how lawns are watered. When I teach my weeds lab, I give my students this sheet, I call them indicator weeds. And so I can walk on a lawn, I can tell something about how that lawn's been fertilized sometime has passed, how it's being watered, if it's got compacted soil. There are weeds that like to grow in certain conditions. So one part of managing weeds, when people say, hey, what do I spray for this? I try to get back to why do you have this weed in the first place? Is it you're mowing too short? You're not mowing frequently enough, you're not fertilizing enough, you're fertilizing too much, you're not watering correctly. We try to correct the cultural stuff. That may not make the weed go away, but if you just spray herbicides to kill weeds and you don't change the way you manage the lawn, you're going to get more weeds. You might get a different weed in the place of the one you just killed. Then you got to go to the store and get a different herbicide to kill that weed because the one you bought first doesn't kill that one. So we try to get at the root cause. So I'm not anti-pesticide at all. I'm anti-stupid use of pesticides, okay? Just let's spray this and hope it works. No. So I kind of like to hang out at the Home Depot in the pesticide aisle. Call me weird. Just to hear the conversations that the person, and if you work at Home Depot or Lowe's, don't take this the wrong way, they have no idea what they're talking about. Oh, yeah, I think but they sound very authoritative. Yeah, this will take care of that crabgrass. Well, how do you know they have crabgrass? Well, if it's ugly, it must be crabgrass, right? Probably not. So people just, they want to spray something, and usually it's not the right thing. Then they call me and say, I sprayed this and it didn't kill my crabgrass, and they send a picture of tall fescue. Well, that's not going to kill that. Yeah. Should have called me first. Yeah. So bottom line is, the happier, the healthier, the denser your turf, the fewer weed problems, the fewer insect problems, the fewer disease problems you're going to have. And so that's what our goal is going to be. So let's start with mowing, the most basic turf management practice. It doesn't matter where turf is, somehow it's going to be mowed. Could be grazed. That's before lawnmowers, that's how it happened. Yeah. Lawns were grazed. Then we graduated to those curved knives, the scythes, And that's not too many years ago, the early 1800s to the mid 1800s. That's how they mowed lawns, with scythes. Yeah. Yeah, the first mowers weren't around until the late 1800s. So, yeah. So mowing. The taller the grass is, the healthier it's going to be. Now, you might like the golf course fairway look, and that does look cool, but that makes lawn care more difficult. I have to tell you, the title, I've used this slide forever. And the title of my slide, it used to say, "Mowing high makes lawn care easier." And I would go and teach in other states, and people would just start laughing, like you did. I put that slide up, and they start, you Colorado people are funny. It's like, what's so funny about mowing? And it's like, oh, I see. So, yeah. Now, some of you may agree that that's true, but you don't do that in Weld County. But certainly, the taller the grass is, the more leaf area, the more photosynthesis, the deeper the roots. So the roots are the part we don't see. We don't see roots. We see the top, and we don't see how what we're doing to the top of the plant influences the roots. And the roots are what absorb the water that we apply. So the way you mow in the spring can influence the drought resistance of the grass in July and August. Something you did 2 months ago could have an effect during the middle of the summer. So if I was giving this talk in end of March and April when the grass is growing like crazy, remember that time? Yeah, it just grows and grows. Oh, I got to mow the lawn again. The first time of the year mowing is fun, right? After that, it goes rapidly downhill, the fun part, okay? Although some people like mowing. They find it therapeutic, and that's cool. But that lawn should be mowed very tall and as frequently as it takes to avoid scalping it. And you can't mow your lawn too frequently. People say, oh, is every other day bad? I go, no. In fact, it's probably better. It's probably better than mowing it once a week. Yeah. You're not going to wear the grass out by mowing it. Yeah. What should be a typical frequency, or what is a typical frequency? Yeah, I would say, well, in the spring, every 5 days. If you're mowing at 2.5 inches, you should mow it every 5, not every Saturday. Yeah. But people that do commercial mowing, how often they do it? Once a week. We're doing this property this week, day of the week. And parks people, we're doing this park on Tuesdays. It doesn't change. And that's business. I understand that. But for someone who can control it, like a golf course superintendent, because they have lots of people that work for them, or a homeowner, that can do it more frequently. More frequent is better. It's just the less you take off every time you mow is healthier for the grass. Yeah, it grows much faster in the spring. Then when it gets hot, then the grass slows down. Then you can go to, this time of year, you can do once a week. Yeah. So it kind of depends on the season. Exactly. Another advantage of mowing tall is it's the cheapest weed control you can have. So if you don't like to use pesticides, if you don't like herbicides, mow your grass tall. It shades out the weeds. Now, going from short and weedy to tall may not make all the weeds go away, but it'll make some of them go away. Bindweed does not like shade. Bindweed will not grow very well in lawns that are mowed at 3 inches tall. It just gives up. It just doesn't like that competition. And in general, weeds don't like competition. Weeds like to find, they're sneaky. They like to find openings in the turf and where it's worn out and along the edge of the sidewalk. You ever notice? Along the sidewalk, the driveway, that's where the weeds come up because there's an opportunity. There's space, okay? In the middle of the lawn, where the turf is healthy, the weeds don't come up, or fewer weeds will. So this is cheap weed control, that taller mowing height. The color doesn't come out real well, but all that yellow stuff on the right-hand side, that's the same grass. It's just mowed 1 to 3 inches, 1.5. Everything else is the same. The way it was fertilized, watered, the grass type, that's just a mowing height effect on weeds. So taller mowing is cheap weed control. Then here's that frequency thing. So mow it tall, and the taller you mow, the less frequently you have to mow. We've got this rule, and this sounds like some kind of government arbitrary thing, but there's actually science behind this 1/3 rule that if you don't take more than a third off at a single mowing, the grass will stay healthy. So if you want your mowing height to be 2 inches, go 3 down to 2, 3 down to 2. That's taking a third off. Just think of that. If you go 4 down to 2, you're cutting half the plant off. How many plants in your yard could you once a week cut half the plant off and have it survive? Well, maybe some weeds. Yeah, there you go, bindweed. Yeah. But most plants we like, you couldn't do that to. Just kind of shows how remarkable grass plants are in general. You know, either grazing or mowing or whatever. They regenerate themselves. They come back from that defoliation, okay? So don't mow like this guy. Yeah. He's probably going from 6 down to 1.5 inches or something. Now, that makes the lawn look bad. That's one downside. But the bigger downside to that is that it kills roots because the plant's response is, I got to make leaves. I need photosynthesis to happen. And the plant will actually take energy away from the root system to make leaves to the detriment of itself. You know, plants aren't necessarily smart. You know, so we can't kind of anthropomorphize. Yeah, we can't make plants people. Okay, they don't think like we do. Okay, so they're gonna take energy away from the root system to make leaves because that's what they have to do in order to survive. The problem is then later in the year when you want a deeper root system, you don't have it because of the way you manage the turf in the spring. So more frequent mowing to follow that 1/3 rule is important. Leave your grass clippings on the lawn, which is easy to do if you mow frequently because they're smaller. Free fertilizer, free organic matter. If you take your clippings off the lawn, and I won't ask for a show of hands because then people are embarrassed because I said you shouldn't do it, but if you take your clippings off your lawn all year, you have to apply 2 to 4 times as much fertilizer as someone that leaves their clippings on their lawn. You have to fertilize more because you're taking nutrients out of the lawn system. You want to put them back in. So it's free fertilizer, doesn't cause thatch. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Keep your mower blade sharp. I was just on a lawn yesterday, and somebody that should have known, actually one of our horde agents, she says, "Oh, is this disease on this lawn?" I go, "No, that's a dull mower blade." So the mower blade, when it's dull, instead of kind of cutting that leaf blade, it shreds it, and then it turns brown, especially in weather like this. Then you get this kind of brownish cast over the lawn, and people will think, "Oh, I have a disease." No. You've got a dull mower blade. Yeah. So sharpen at least once a year, or on the holidays, or whenever. But you know, for most people, their sharpened mower blade is when they buy a new mower. That's in the life of that mower, is when they sharpen their mower blade. So, and if you have a tall fescue lawn especially, it'll shred and turn tall fescue lawns really brown. So fortunately, bluegrass is probably the most forgiving one when it comes to dull mower blades. But Keep that mower blade sharp. Don't mow your lawn when it's heat and drought stress. So if your lawn was needing water today and it's 95, and instead of coming here, you decided to stay home and mow your lawn, you could do this to your lawn. Has anyone ever had this happen where you get these wheel tracks and funky lines, and sometimes you can even see footsteps. You can see the footsteps between the lines and say, oh, you mowed your lawn like a couple of days ago, and here's your footsteps. I can follow you every track. And that's, as bad as that looks, that lawn is not dead. It will come back. And there's a little bit of a disease in there, but the big problem is that lawn was drought stressed and it was heat stressed. The leaves were all kind of wimpy and wilty. Then you put this mower, and it's got this blade going hundreds of miles per hour, whacking away at those poor drought-stressed leaves, and the weight of the mower and the weight of your feet, it kills the leaf blades. Doesn't kill the plant. The plant will come back. But it looks bad for a couple, 2, 3 weeks. Yeah, it'll come back. But no one thinks that's a good lawn look there. Okay, what about fertilizing? Fertilizing. Now, I will tell you, most of the lawns I visit, and again, it's not because people ask me to come to see a good lawn. They ask me to come see lawns that aren't so good. Most of the lawns I visit are not fertilized enough. But sometimes I visit a lawn where people are going way at the other end of the spectrum, and they're fertilizing way, way, way too much, okay? If you leave your clippings on the lawn, so if you're recycling your clippings, and it's a fairly old lawn, you know, especially in an older part of Greeley, you can probably fertilize once a year, and it'll be fine. That's if it's a 20, 30-year-old lawn. But if you've got a 1-year-old lawn in a brand new housing addition on the worst soil you could ever imagine, because it's where the basement is now, and that's your front yard soil, that lawn probably needs to be fertilized 4 times a year. So it depends on the age of the lawn. It's the age of the lawn and kind of the age of the soil, if you will. So a great example, CSU's campus. CSU started in 1870. And so the oldest part of campus, and in fact almost all of campus except for the athletic fields, they fertilize once a year. And actually they forgot last year. They forgot to fertilize. And the turf was fine all this year. You would not know by looking at that turf that it's been almost 2 years now since it's been fertilized. But that's because the soil is old. They returned the clippings. And what is it about old soil? What's in old soil that provides nutrients? Nitrogen, which is in the organic matter in the soil. And where does the organic matter come from? The root system of that lawn is completely replaced every year. See, people don't realize that lawns are constantly producing new root systems all the time. It's not like an oak tree, where once it forms its roots, it's there forever. The turf roots, every year, they're producing new roots. Those old roots decompose and provide organic matter, and that holds nitrogen. Yeah. So the older your lawn is, the more nitrogen stored in the soil, and the less you have to apply with your fertilizer spreader, okay? So here's a picture, look at this. So this is some friends in, and I will tell you this is in Wisconsin, with pretty good soil. And then of course they get rain. But this does show the effect of fertilizing on the amount of weeds. So look, no fertilizer. And so this is typically what I see. The lawns I go to that people are having problems, they're overwatering, they're not fertilizing, and they collect their grass clippings. That's a triple whammy. Those lawns, they don't look good, there's no density. I say it's lucky you're getting any grass clippings. This grass can't be growing. Yeah, I don't get too much. Yeah, they're just really bad. Weeds come into those lawns because the grass is not dense and you can see soil. When you can see soil, that provides opportunity for a weed. spurge, crabgrass, foxtail. Yeah. Okay, so fertility gives you density. And this is just a very simple experiment they did at University of Wisconsin to show that. So kind of cool stuff there. How do you know if you don't have enough nitrogen? Well, the grass doesn't grow, doesn't have good color. If you have kids and dogs, it doesn't recover from traffic. They wear the lawn out. Okay. You get more of certain types of weeds. Clover and black medic are the two big ones here. I want to know there's some relationship. There's a plant family that clover and black medic are in. They're in the same plant family. The beans family, yeah, they're legumes. And what's special about those plants? So this is like alfalfa and the clovers and green beans, peas, okay? They have a bacteria that lives in their root system that can take nitrogen right out of the atmosphere. We've got a lot of nitrogen in the air we breathe. We don't use it for anything. But those bacteria in those legumes species, they take the nitrogen out of the air and they share it with the plant whose roots they're living on, and that plant gets all its nitrogen from those bacteria. That plant is very happy when you don't fertilize your lawn, because grass plants can't do that. So the clover goes crazy, the black medic goes crazy, and the less you fertilize, the crazier those weeds go. So those are some of my big indicator weeds of that sometime in the life of that lawn, it was not fertilized enough. Might not be the current people, maybe they're fertilizing and they just bought the house and they know something about lawn care and they're fertilizing. It's like, why do I have all these weeds? But the person that lived there for the last 10 years, they didn't fertilize, and that's how those weeds got there. So some indicators. We get some diseases, especially in the fall. We'll get rust on bluegrass. The lawns get rusty and brown if they're not fertilized. Too much fertilizer, on the other hand, you get other types of weeds. You got to mow more. You got to water more. You get certain diseases, necrotic ring spot. So that big, ugly, patchy thing. That's that root rot fungus. So when I see that, I know that lawn's watered too much and probably fertilized too much in the spring. Okay? People are all fired up about lawn care in the spring. They go out and they put fertilizer on in the spring. The grass is grown already anyway. That nitrogen and then a wet spring, and we've had a wet spring, that will stimulate that necrotic ring spot, that really ugly disease. Okay, so too much, too little, like most things in life, moderation, including politics. No, just kidding. Okay, don't send me emails. Okay, but you can see things get wacky on both ends, right? Yeah. Okay, there's no best fertilizer. People say, what's the best one? There really isn't a best one. The plant doesn't care. Now, some people like to do things organically. Cool. Other people love Vigoro and Scott's Turf Builder. Fine. And the bluegrass plant says, I don't care, just give me my nitrogen. Because ultimately the molecule that gets into the plant is the same. It doesn't matter what the label says. What the plant uses is chemically the same stuff. So, but people have preferences. So as far as the best fertilizer, something I like to encourage is to use local products. I'm big about local things. I help run the farmers market in Fort Collins, and it's a growers only market. So those people that sell at our market, they have to be growing stuff. They can't be buying veggies grown in California and then sell them at our market. So we go to their farms and we make sure they're growing. People are selling the meat. We make sure that they're doing the farming, and the people that make the jewelry. We go to their studio and see that they're making their own jewelry. So I like these fertilizers not because I'm promoting organics, but because these are produced in Colorado, and they're both really, really good fertilizers. So if you do like to do organic, instead of buying something made in New York and shipping it out here, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So, but yeah, there's local fertilizer production in Colorado. So So look for those. When's the best time to fertilize? When's the best time? If you could pick one time, if you could only fertilize one time, somewhere around the first week of September, first couple weeks of September. Unless it's super, super hot. You know, the weather's been changing a little bit, seems like, right? So if it's still like 95 or 100 degrees in the first week of September, hold off for a while. But once we're getting into fall, the days are getting shorter, the nights are getting cooler. That's, for a bluegrass or a fescue lawn, that's the best time to fertilize. Not the best time to fertilize buffalo grass, so if you switch to buffalo grass after hearing Don's talk last month, like right now is a good time to fertilize buffalo grass. Right now. If you've got that younger lawn, the one that needs 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 applications a year, then once in the fall and then once in the spring, and then maybe use the organic stuff in the summer, like this time of year. Yeah, you don't want the grass to grow a lot this time of year. You don't want to force it to grow because it doesn't want to grow. Bluegrass does not like to grow when it's 95 degrees. And so if you put a lot of fertilizer on and you're making it do something it doesn't want to do, it gets unhappy. And that's when you can get some disease. But if you use organic fertilizer, it kind of releases just a little bit of nitrogen. It's not going to overstimulate the grass. And so that's kind of it. So really, maybe 3 times a year for a really new young lawn. And then start cutting like the middle one out for an older lawn. And if you got really a 30-year-old, 40-year-old lawn, probably just go with that one fall application, and that lawn should be good. And that's putting the clippings back, though. If you keep taking your clippings off, then you got to do probably 2 or 3 times a year, even on an old lawn. Oh, I like to put this in because I see people like these spreaders. And again, I won't ask for a show of hands. But when I ask people, oh, what kind of spreader do you use? And I can almost tell because I walk on this lawn. It's like, oh, I bet they're using one of these things. And I know they're handy and they hang on the wall in the garage and they don't take up space. But these are horrible spreaders. You know, unless you have a lawn that's like the size of this table here. You know, but yeah, I mean, some of these little patio homes, it's just this little tiny thing. We say, oh, I don't want to have a spreader for that. And I can go with that. But if you've got your 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 square foot front yard and then you got a backyard, don't try doing it with this. It will take you forever to do it the right way. You have to fill that thing up so many times. And what people don't do is fill it up so many times. And so they're not putting even close to enough fertilizer out. It's not even close. And then they're putting stripes out, and yeah. Then if you're putting any kind of pesticide out with it, you got that right under your nose. It's like, not real smart. So, yeah. So drop spreader or centrifugal, either one of those. You know, the regular lawn spreaders. The thing there is, buy a fertilizer that when you turn the bag over, it has a setting for your spreader. That way you know you're putting the right amount on. So it'll say use spreader setting 12 or J if they're using the letters of the alphabet. But if there's no instructions, people say, oh, let's set it here and see if that works. One thing about weed and feeds. I am not a fan of these because a lot of times you have a weed here and a weed here, and most of your lawn has no weeds in it. So why put the herbicide all over the place? So buy that, ready-to-use spray. Do some spot spraying of those weeds. You'll get better results. And then with these things, you run the risk of throwing stuff in your vegetable garden, your flower bed, in your neighbor's yard, and on the street, and places that we really don't want pesticides going. So, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of those. Does it do any good to dig weeds out of your yard? It depends on the weed. So here's the thing with weeds. The way you win a battle with a weed, and this is true for bindweed or dandelions or anything, is you wear out their energy supplies. So believe it or not, you can win a battle with bindweed in your vegetable garden just by pulling. But it's pulling constantly. And people say, oh, I pull it forever. Usually it's they pulled it once, and then they give up, and they say they've been pulling it forever. But if you mulch and you pull, you can win that battle. In a lawn, here's what usually happens if you try digging a dandelion. Usually you get 2 dandelions where you dug the one. Because underground, a very old dandelion, a 2, 3, 4-year-old, they'll live that long. Its roots will be about this deep. And you think you got the whole root. You got that much of it. And what happens is then there are adventitious buds on the side of what you left, and it'll send 2 plants up or 3 plants up to where you dug the. So then you got 3 more a couple months later to pull out. But if you just have a little crabgrass plant, which is an annual, and you pull it, there's nothing to grow back from. But you've got a lot of Bermuda grass in lawns around here. You will never win pulling Bermuda grass, ever. Not going to happen. Quackgrass, Bermuda grass, you won't win that battle. I still have that memory, again, growing up in Illinois, my dad, and I didn't know what the grass, I know what it was now. I know it was quackgrass, which is perennial. But I still remember, and I had 3 brothers, he had us all sit in the lawn pulling this plant out. I still remember the roots. It's like, wow. He said, get all those roots, and it's just like, he had us pulling quackgrass, and we never won. Yeah. How do you get rid of quackgrass? You use Roundup and kill the lawn and start over. Yep. Yeah. It's one you're not going to win. Okay, let's talk about water, which is what we came tonight to talk about. So, I like putting this picture up. I like these type of irrigation heads. I often recommend people switch these out. They're called stream rotors, kind of the magic fingers of water. Anybody have these things in their yard? Yeah. Okay. What do you think of them? Be honest. Do you like them? Yeah. So in Fort Collins, I don't know what the rebate thing here is, but in Fort Collins you get, I think, almost 100% rebate on the cost of switching from sprays to these, switching out the spray heads. So I encourage these a lot because they put water out slowly, which reduces runoff. They put it out uniformly, which reduces brown spots. So they're a nice way to kind of upgrade, pretty inexpensively, a pop-up spray irrigation system. So I like recommending those. The question is how much water do we need every week? I've tried to come up in 30 years with a refrigerator magnet that works. I mean, and what's the problem? Why isn't it the same all the time? Yeah, because it's hot, it's cold, it's shady, or it's cloudy, it's sunny, it's windy, it's calm, it's humid, it's not. And those are the 4 things that make plants use water. It doesn't matter if it's an oak tree or your lawn or a tomato plant in your garden. It's the amount of sun, it's the amount of wind, it's the amount of humidity, and it's the air temperature. Those 4 things are what make plants use water, any plant. Okay, so think of Colorado. It's sunny, it's windy, it's not humid, it's hot. We have high water use, or maybe you've heard of ET rates, evapotranspiration rates. We have high water use rates. And so if we're going to keep plants green, we got to water them. On average, that's kind of the numbers. Now, I gave you that big, colorful, everyone pick up the 1-page, let's see, yeah, this thing here. This thing. This is the kind of based on seasonal average. But the problem is, what's the problem with averages? We're rarely on average. You watch the weather at night. The average temperature for today is, how often was the temperature that it wasn't? So that's the problem with averages. We're above or we're below. So that's one way to water your lawn, though, So I make that up for people who say, how much should I put on? And I give this to people who are way overwatering or way underwatering their lawns. At least it gets them closer to the average, okay? It gets them to put less on or put more on, okay? But we'll talk about some more sophisticated ways to do that. One thing I like to show you on here, though, and this is something that people don't often know about their spray heads. So those pop-up sprays, they put a lot of water out in a short amount of time. And that's what gives turf a bad name, because then what happens? Gravity takes over, and where's the water go? Into the street. And people say, oh, look at that, bluegrass is wasting water. No, it's not the plant wasting the water. It's the person running the irrigation system that's wasting the water, okay? So that's why I like to get people to change those pop-up sprays to those stream rotors. But you have to run them way longer than a pop-up spray. So rotors, the ones that turn real slowly, or the stream rotors, they put water out slowly. You have to run them. If you look at those numbers, we're looking at 2 to 3 times as long as a pop-up spray to put the same amount of water on. And that's a good thing, because it gives the water a chance to sink into the soil, into the root system, rather than running off, or rather going to low spots in your lawn, okay? So that's something to know. If you do switch out from sprays to rotors, double or almost triple your run times. Oh, yeah. Okay, so soak cycle, yeah, so the 2-cycle thing here. So what do we mean by 2 cycles? So we call these soak cycles. And so so if you want to keep your pop-up sprays, instead of running for 20 minutes, and that's guaranteed to have runoff, do like 9 minutes, and then come back an hour or 2 hours later and put another 9 minutes on. But yeah, what some people do is they'll water at 5 in the morning and then 5 in the afternoon or something. And they'll split their run times that way. Well, they're splitting their run times. Technically, they're doing what we said, but you want that split, that time difference to be a shorter interval than once in the morning and once, 12 hours later. Yeah. So what's another way to water? Oh, turn your irrigation system off. Put it on manual. Oh my gosh, you say, well, that's not why I bought it. I bought it so I didn't have to think about it. And that's the set it and forget it mode. Now, if you got a little bit more sophisticated controllers, they can have like seasonal adjustments and those kind of things, and that can help. But the technique I'm going to show you is also how many of you are hose draggers? Any hose draggers in here? I say that affectionately. They're all on this side of the room. Oh, okay, you do too, yeah. Yeah, so what do you have to do if you're a hose dragger? You have to work. Well, but people have just this. They just go to work and they forget about it, and oh yeah. The controller takes care of it, but those of you who have to pull the sprinkler around and move it and move the hose, it's like you are the most efficient irrigators. And that's been shown in studies that look at how people water lawns. The hose draggers always are the most efficient, yeah, because they have to work at it, okay? But that's not awfully convenient for going on vacation, is it? Because then you gotta what? You gotta hire somebody or bribe a nephew or a grandkid to water your lawn, or a neighbor, and all that. So in-ground systems are very convenient, but they get too convenient for people, and that's where we start to see maybe overwatering, okay? So let's talk about I call it easy, that's in quotations, okay? So first, turn your clock to manual or off, instead of just letting it run wild and free, okay? And then do this. Try to figure out when it needs to be watered. And the lawn will tell you. It's just like your house plant. Your house plants, they go, ugh. You go, ooh, looks like it needs water. And you put a bunch of water on, okay? Those of you that are good at growing house plants, do you just willy-nilly water your plants every day without touching the soil or looking? No. If you do, you're replacing a lot of house plants. because you're probably overwatering them. So what do you do with your houseplants? How do you know when they need water? You touch them with your finger. I bet you have African violets.
No, I kill them.
Oh, so do I. So do I. They're hard. But anyway, yeah, you touch the soil, okay? You can do the same thing in your lawn. You can do the screwdriver test. Not a very sophisticated scientific instrument, but you can kind of tell. And so this is what I do with people when they say, I say, you got an irrigation coverage problem. Oh, I stole slides from another talk that was timed. I was wondering why these slides are changing. But people that have brown spots in their lawn, I say, this is an irrigation coverage problem. They go, no, it isn't. So I have this screwdriver. Usually I bring it in with me. It's my favorite diagnostic tool, real long, skinny thing. And I go over and I push it into the nice green part of the lawn. I say, see this? I say, okay, go stick it over in that brown spot. And they're going, okay, I guess you're right. You know, like I haven't seen this before. That's what that screwdriver is there in the brown spot. And I couldn't get it in, you see. So, I mean, it's not sophisticated, but it can tell you a lot about how moist your soil is. But the other thing is this thing we call footprinting, but also this discoloration thing. So this is the lawn behind my building, so horrible irrigation system, but it's really good for teaching students how to recognize irrigation. And so the colors are more subtle than what you see here, but you get kind of this blue-gray, funky tinge to the grass. And it's like, if you don't water tonight, that turf's going to be hurting, okay? And so the turf will tell you. The other thing is footprinting. That bottom picture, that's on a golf course fairway. And that's a fairway that's really, and so the turf is wilting. The leaves are wilting, just like your houseplants in your yard might be wilting. And that's the sign to water it. And then what do? Put as much water on as you can without it running off. Use the soak cycles, that whole thing. If you can put a ½ inch, but you don't even have to measure it, but put a bunch of water on. You fill the root zone up and don't water again until you see the wilt. That could be every other day when it's hot and sunny and windy and low humidity, or it could be every 5 days if it's cloudy and cool and calm and humid. Great question. Yes, soil compaction. So, and that's another reason to do the soak cycles. So it gives at least the water a little bit of a chance to get into those compacted areas. But that's very true. The more compacted the soil is, the water's going to run around, and it'll eventually go to a place where it's less compacted. Very true. That's the importance of core cultivation or aeration, which we'll get to. The other thing with the watering, water at night. 9 at night till 9 in the morning is a good kind of thing in there. If you can water at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, that's the perfect time to water a lawn. I'm not saying that's the perfect time for watering other parts of your landscape, but for your lawn, that is perfect. Usually it's calmer. You get better water pressure, especially in cities, so you get better distribution. Downside of watering, and I don't have a picture in here, is if your irrigation system misbehaves, and you got a head that's missing or one that's not turning or something, unless you're a night owl and you're out watching your irrigation go run at 2 in the morning. I don't know how you do that, but then what happens is you get spots like this. You get a green spot and then you get brown everywhere else. Always look in the middle of the green spot. People are amazed when I go. I like to go to these lawns and I'll take my screwdriver and I'll go like lawn darts, And I go, there's an irrigation head there. And I go walking. Well, how did you know that? I don't know. Wild guess. Wild guess. But yeah, check for coverage problems too. But so that's one way to water, and then 9 at night till 9 in the morning is a good time. A lot of the stuff that we get on grass is not really dew. People call it dew, but it's water that comes from inside the plant, and it's this stuff called. I don't even have it on there. I call it dew because it's a long word called guttation, but it's water that comes out of the plant, and it's got sugars and amino acids and goodies that fungi love. Guttation, Guttation. Houseplants will do it sometimes. If you ever get little drips on the end, the tip of a houseplant, that's guttation fluid. Taste the water sometime, it'll be sweet. Yeah, it won't be poisonous either. Yeah. But yeah, you wash that off by watering, and that stuff starts forming about 1 or 2 in the morning. So if you're ever rolling around your lawn about that time of day, I won't ask you why, but yeah, you'll get wet, and a lot of times it's guttation and not dew. Yeah, and so it's good to wash that off the lawn, and we've done that for years in golf course. That's why we'll water even just for a few minutes in the morning on a golf course green to wash that stuff off, or mowing takes it off. Yeah. Oh, too much. We know the problems of too much water. Squishy turf, high water bills. You know, one thing about Japanese beetle, though, Japanese beetle will preferentially look for lawns that are overwatered, because the female has to dig into the lawn about 1 inch to lay its eggs. So it's not going to dig into hard, crusty soil. It's going to go to the lawns. So that's why Japanese beetle started at Denver Country, or at Cherry Hills Country Club in Denver. That was the epicenter, and now it's all over the state. And all those neighborhoods, very well-watered landscapes, they did very well. Then you get more necrotic ring spot if you're overwatering. Not enough water, the other end of the spectrum. We get certain weeds, the turf doesn't grow, doesn't look good. You know, so it's that fine medium. Took these pictures just recently. So when we go from spring and it was cold and wet, and then all of a sudden it's 95 degrees, boom, we get this happening. And again, this is where people aren't used to watering. They're saying, oh, it was cold and wet last week. Yeah, but it's been 95 for 3 days. Yeah, and so we start getting this combination of tracking. We get a little of this disease called ascochyta leaf blight. You can see the neighbor's lawn was watered. You can tell where the property line is. The neighbor was watering, this neighbor wasn't. They got the disease. The cure is to not overwater, but water as the turf needs. Unfortunately, a lot of times people go the opposite direction, and they turn the lawn into a swamp to try to get it back, and that slows recovery. The turf is not a rice plant. It needs, the roots need oxygen to recover. How do you know when you have irrigation problems? Honestly, and honestly, these people, they argued with me that they were watering enough. And again, showing them it in the middle of every green spot, there's a head. And when you turn those on, the heads didn't even come out of the ground. There's a little bit of water shooting out, but the heads didn't even pop up in the middle of those green spots. So here's another one. This is Castle Pines. They wanted to replace their sod. I said, I think I could save you money. Not that they need it in Castle Pines, but still. Yeah. I said, let's turn your irrigation system on. And every head was crooked like that. Every one of those in every one of those spots. So that's where the brown comes from. Here's one in Fort Collins. So this is what I do to convince people. Because, that sprinkler's on. There's water, obviously. Some is hitting that brown spot. But it's not enough. So I put some containers on the green spots, some on the brown spots. I run the system for 10, 15 minutes, and then we collect the water. And those two containers, they were like this far apart. And one had 1/10 of an inch, one had 2/10 of an inch. And you say, well, that's only 1/10 of an inch difference. But it's twice as much. That's the way to think about it. I said, you're putting twice as much water. Now think about this. For a year, twice as much, just like 4 feet apart. That's why you have brown spot here and this is nice and green. But you can't eyeball it. It looks like water's going there. And I understand why people tell me I'm crazy, but I say, I promise you, this is not uniform distribution. Now, no system is perfect, but this is why you get the audits done, to help you understand this head is crooked, or it's too deep, it's not turning, it's spaced too much. Now, you might run into this problem. You see this in new housing additions. The first people in, they had great pressure. Now, 300 more homes, wow, I don't have any pressure anymore. My irrigation system used to cover perfectly, now it doesn't. Yeah. And sometimes you can do some things with heads and, pressure adjustment, that kind of thing. But you can do your own little audit too. It doesn't have to be super fancy. What I do is not fancy. I mean, I use the fancy cups, but I don't do a full-blown audit. It's just to show people that the water is not going on uniformly. We talked about the sprinkler heads, and I like the stream rotors. I like regular rotors too. And there are high-efficiency pop-up sprays, but in general, rotors and stream rotors, especially for our soils, you get much better infiltration. So why do it's hard to see the prices here. So why do so many new developments use pop-up sprays? Just look at the prices here, and I'll read them if you can't see them. The pop-up sprays here, this is at Ace, $5.59 for the entire sprinkler. And then you go to the rotor, $15.99. That's why. $10 more per head. That's why you don't see rotors in new developments unless it's super, not to say anything about your development, but But in between are the stream rotors. So up here they're $12.99. Now you say, well, that's still pretty pricey. Thing is, you don't have to buy the whole body. So if you've got the pop-up sprays, all you got to do is unscrew the spray tip, buy the new stream rotor nozzle, substitute 180s for 180s, make sure they're pointing the right way. Yeah. And they have adjustable ones. So yeah, I encourage switching from the sprays to the streams. And then the price of just the nozzles, not including that whole plastic part that goes into the ground, that's $9. But you can see where the technology is. It's in the tip. The body is just a plastic tube. It's the tip, and that's where the money is. I'm just going to show you some cool technology. So this is my personal current favorite controller. And we're not supposed to promote individual products in extension, but I'm tenured, so what the heck. And I've had 30 years, so if they want to fire me over this, good luck. But this system, this Ratio system, anybody have this controller? This thing is amazing. It is amazing. It's made in Colorado. This is a Colorado company. It's built in Colorado. They have the most amazing customer service. I swear these people don't sleep. You get online, how on these websites you feel kind of creepy. They say, hey, can we help you? You want to have a chat? It's like 2 in the morning. It's like, oh, maybe. But EPA Water Sense certified. So this is kind of the certification that your appliances get, that Energy Star thing when you buy a refrigerator, washer, dryer. You use this much, it costs you this much electricity in dollars per year. The Water Sense is that equivalent for irrigation heads and controllers and all that kind of thing. So you look for that Water Sense certification. And this is one of the few controllers manufactured in the United States that is Water Sense certified. This thing you can run it from your phone, and so what you can do is, here's the thing though, a smart controller doesn't fix a stupid irrigation system. So if it's stupid design, and for example, stupid is you have a station in the lawn goes on, and then you have drip going in your flower bed at the same time, connected to the lawn station. And you say, well, that's stupid. Well, yeah, but it happens. Yeah, too often, unfortunately. This can't fix stupid design. But if you've got great design, if you've got good stations, and you have good control, this is an amazing controller, because what it does predictive irrigation. So what it's doing is it's looking at tomorrow's weather, and it's looking at how much water has been used in your landscape, and it decides, we're not going to water tonight because there's a 90% chance of rain tomorrow or something like that. So it's looking at temperature, the weather, and then you can put a soil moisture sensor that also talks to this thing. So you put the soil moisture sensor in the soil, and it's telling it, yeah, there's this much moisture in the soil. They're amazing, amazing controllers. And if you got a real large landscape, you got 8-zone and 16-zone controllers, but really, really cool. They're not cheap. So this is a real good one, but you know, Hunter's got good ones, Rainbird's got good ones, Toro's got really good smart controllers too. This one has been targeted towards the home landscape market though. But interestingly, a lot of professional irrigation people are buying this thing for like HOAs. It's so good, it really is. A cool thing they just added this year, they have a flow sensor that you can put on your system right by the controller, and it measures the flow for each station. So it measures the flow to this part of the yard, the front yard, the backyard, the drip in this bed, and what it will do is it'll sense if there's an unusual amount of flow, which could be a leak in that, and then it'll send you a text message or an email saying, hey, station 2 isn't performing well here. It knows each station's flow, and it measures it. Wirelessly. It's amazing, really cool stuff. So you can get soil moisture sensors. You can get these on Amazon. What can't you get on Amazon? But yeah, you can get all these on Amazon. Some you have to wire in. The Toro one is wireless. The Toro one only just starts the cycle for the whole kit and caboodle though. So it turns your controller on, station 1 on, and then it just does that. Whereas the others you can wire to individual stations. That said, all that great technology won't fix crooked irrigation heads and ones that are too deep or missing, like that one on campus. That one was 2 years, that one went. In the lower left-hand corner there. That's my son, who's been in the Peace Corps for almost 2 years now. And they finally fixed it this year. I kept putting flags on it. I say, hey, guys. Oh, yeah, we'll get to that. You said that last year. Yeah. But that really messes up the pressure for all the other heads on that station. So let me go through thatch. So there was a question about thatch is mostly roots. That's not grass, clippings. It's root accumulation above the soil. And again, our soils are not the best here. So roots will grow where it's easiest, and that's on top of the soil. So then you get this cushiony, kind of bouncy layer. A little bit of that's good for wear tolerance. But when it gets to be like 1, 2, 3 inches deep, water goes right through that. But unfortunately, the roots are growing in there. So then the turf gets really drought stressed very easily because it doesn't hold water. So you're watering almost every day if you have very thatchy turf. So the key is to keep it from accumulating, keep it from getting too thick, which means for kind of the beginning of your lawn, hopefully, that's when you start, is managing the thatch. And the way you do that is with core cultivation, or one way, okay? So by plugging, aerating, pulling those cores, leaving the cores on. You want the soil to stay on because then it breaks up and it filters down and it helps that thatch decompose and it helps the thatch hold water, okay? Now, you can do power raking. You can remove the thatch, and that's a valid way of doing it. It's very time intensive. It's a lot of stuff you have to rake up. Now, what do you do with that stuff, you know? So that's kind of a problem. So I like the core cultivation or aeration technique because what it also does is it releases compaction. So if you do have those hard spots in your lawn, it helps water to get in, it helps roots to grow into the soil. Power raking it's not really relieving the problem, which is the roots don't want to grow into the soil. So these holes, when you make those holes, that's what happens. And again, we don't see this. You know, we just see the holes and we say, oh, I think that was good. I don't know. Did that work? You know, and so this is what happens after you make those holes in your lawn, as the roots go shooting down rather than growing on top of the soil. What causes a lumpiness in your lawn? Night crawlers, earthworms. Yeah. So if you have night crawlers or earthworms, you don't have thatch. I absolutely guarantee you, I've never seen a lumpy lawn with thatch. because they're eating the organic matter. So in that sense, they're good. From the lawn smoothness sense, not so good. Yeah, how often, what time of the year? Did I have that here? Here we go. Spring or fall, or spring and fall. If you have a lot of compaction, if you have a lot of thatch, you can do spring and fall. You just don't want to do it this time of year, because man, water is just leaving your lawn, and you have to water so much with those holes. I mean, athletic turf managers do it this time of year because they have to, not because they want to. It's because they have to relieve compaction. But they're watering like crazy after they do it. And think twos. You want 2 to 3 inches apart, 2 to 3 inches deep, and maybe twice a year. You want lots of holes, and you want them as deep as you can, and you want them to be pulling cores. You don't want to just be poking holes. You want soil to be coming out. And I know that's messy, but that's really where you're getting the thatch management and you're benefiting the turf. Is it possible to do it without renting a machine? Yeah, you mean hiring someone? Yeah, you can hire. Oh, foot aerifiers? Yeah, there are foot aerifiers. I don't know if I have pictures of them. Right there. Yeah, it would take a long time to do your lawn that way. Be good exercise. Yeah, it's good for little spots at the end of pathways, along sidewalks, that kind of thing. The lawn aerator sandals, they don't work. And I know someone in here has those, right? Maybe not as cool as those are. You're taking them back now. Yeah. Kept a receipt, I hope. That stuff, that doesn't know anything lazy man's liquid gold. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Yeah. Here's another cool thing about aerifying, though. Poking those holes is a good time to put seed out. The seed, I don't know if you can see the seed around that hole. That's on the bare soil, on top of the soil. That went down the same time as what's growing out of that hole. Those holes are perfect places for grass seed to grow. Little germination chambers. You don't need to fill the holes up with anything. Just leave the holes. So you seed, maybe rake, or here's a cool thing. Put the seed down and run your lawnmower over it, and the pressure from the mower blows the seed into the holes. Yeah. And it kind of breaks the plugs up too. Not good for your mower blade. So keep an old mower blade and put that on to hit those cores and chop them up. And seeding after aerifying is a good deal. So I was on somebody's lawn last week, and I was this close to this rabbit with my camera. They're like fearless. They just and so what do? They like destroy lawns. Some people see them during the day, but other people say, oh, I never see a rabbit in my lawn. I go, you got rabbits, because I show them this. They go, oh, I just wondered what those were, Yes, yeah. But rabbits like to feed at night, and so and here's the other thing, is dogs like to eat that stuff. So dogs will eat all those pellets, and people don't think they have rabbits. And so it's the rabbits are at night. So I was doing master gardener training in Boulder, and I turned my car in to leave. It was a nighttime class, and it's like, look at all those rabbits. So I was taking this picture, and I'll show you the outcome of this. It was the best thing ever. But here's the thing. This is rabbit entry. Rabbits will do that to lawns. They constantly eat it till they just keep defoliating it. They're scalping the lawn, and their urine is super potent because rabbits have a hard time finding water to drink, so they concentrate their urine in it. You think your dog's pee is bad? Rabbit pee is the worst. Yeah, so they kill grass in 2 ways, and they feed in the same spots over and over and over and over again. And so I've seen lawns that were half killed by rabbits. But if you get down and look, you can see how they just shave the grass. Yeah, they just shave it right down. So the motion sprinkler sensors kind of work. This stuff works. The problem is they just move somewhere else. You could not afford to spray your whole lawn with this stuff because each bottle is like $12. But if you've got little perennials that you really like and the rabbits are eating them, get this stuff, this rabbit stopper. They won't touch the plant. Here's what works though. This is cool. So mill organite fertilizer. This is from Milwaukee Sanitary District. This is sewage sludge. Okay. that's been processed. They heat it to about 1,500 degrees or 1,200 degrees. Kills every virus, bad thing that's in sewage sludge. And they granulate it. And this company's, when I was a golf course superintendent in Chicago, this is all I used on my golf course. This was the only fertilizer I used. Great stuff. So Ace sells it, Tractor Supply sells it, and some people tell me they found it at Walmart too. I haven't looked at Walmart, but whenever I talk about it, it sells out at the local Ace hardware stores. So in Fort Collins and Windsor anyway, they know to keep it stocked up because I really promote this. Rabbits, because they're sticking their nose into the ground all the time, they get a little bit of the aroma. You smell it about the day that you apply it. After that, you don't know it's there. So it's got a little funk, but for any animal that's got their nose in the ground. So voles don't like this. So if you have problems with voles, put it on in the fall. And put it in your beds. And put it in your junipers, because the voles are living under your junipers. Okay? You can put it in your vegetable garden. It's safe for veggies. It's safe. You can do the whole landscape. And so I had a master gardener did this over in Windsor. So he took 6 neighbors on his street, and he just randomly, he bought the fertilizer and he applied it. And he said, you tell me what happens, because they all had rabbits. And within a couple days, the ones with milorganite, not a rabbit in their yards. They all went to the neighbors' yards that didn't have and then they wanted the milorganite too. So, and it actually kind of works for deer. If there's enough other places for deer to go, they'll avoid lawns that have milorganite in them too. So that's all I got. A good lawn finally. Look at that. That's Don's lawn.